What up, though?
What's up, bro?
How are you?
Beating the heat. Got all the windows closed up. Got the AC, little baby AC, down to 72. I think it's an accomplishment.
Is it working?
Yeah. It's the coldest it's ever been in the house.
Everybody all huddled up in the cold room?
You know, I would think that the downstairs basement, right? We're in basement country, is always nice and cold. But you would think the boys would want to just clamber down there. But it's like they got their domain upstairs, so they stay up there.
Looks like you tried to beat the heat with a little water yesterday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We were paddleboarding on the lake. It was a good time. That is a very zen place to be, especially that time of the day. Golden hour, sun's coming down, hit the paddleboards. There's only but a few boats out there, and they stay away. So it's a pretty good place to be.
Pretty refreshing on a hot Washington day, huh?
Yeah. I bring out a controversial Twisted Tea in my little cooler and my Bluetooth speaker.
Why is that controversial?
Some people are like, Twisted Tea, what are you doing? But usually I'm like, dude, have you tried Twisted Tea?
Speaking of that, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today was, lions, tigers, bears. You have a lot of bears on your property. And it's funny, living in Florida is total contrast to what you see. Right. But,
yeah. We are about as far apart in the contiguous U.S. as we could possibly be from each other. Minus maybe an hour each way.
In more ways than one, bro.
In more ways than one.
And what's funny is
and politically.
I love it there and you love it here.
Well, I have a lot of history in South Florida. My grandparents lived there for a very long time. And I used to tear up Fort Lauderdale. I was stationed in Orlando. That was kind of my old gig, hauling up and down the turnpike, going down to the Keys. We'd go out to the Bahamas for Christmas. It was a good jam.
That sounds like a pretty privileged life.
It's interesting you say that. I grew up. I didn't say I grew up poor. I grew up. We didn't have a ton of money, right? When I was with mom and dad, I would get Pro Wings, right? And then my grandmother would fly me out every summer and then every Christmas. And then I would come home with the Nikes and the department store clothes. I was
Absolutely.
like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So you had sort of a medium range side of the family, and then you had a bougie side.
That's exactly right.
I know what that's like, brother.
I feel like you and I are a lot alike in a bunch of those ways.
You had a bougie side. Yeah, you weren't eating out of trash cans, but you had two sides of the story.
Yep.
So, dude, talk to me about the bears in your driveway. You're always sending like a Ring video of bears.
So up here in the PNW,
aren't you afraid of that?
No, they're just black bears. They're just little guys. They're more scared of me than I am of them.
Really?
Oh yeah. Well, except for when there's a mom and her baby. Okay, so let's set it up. So we live about five minutes outside of Redmond, which is just on the other side of Lake Washington from Seattle. So Microsoft land. And it's a pretty bustling little town, but we live just up the hill and we live close to a little pond and we have a decent sized yard. But there's a nature path around the pond and we're inside that path. And so that nature path or walkway, for people to walk around and get their jog on and their yoga ends up being prime highway for critters of all shapes and sizes. And so, yeah, we have about 5 or 6 cameras and 2 of them are pointing out at the driveway and we have a big driveway and we'll get the usual rabbits, raccoons, deer. And then we started noticing things that were what we thought a little more exotic, but they were just the norm. Bobcats, bears. And it's like, okay, whoa, what's going on here? I think go ahead.
I wouldn't walk to my car without a sidearm. Straight up.
And we have that opportunity. We have what we call bear spray, quote
bear
unquote.
spray.
We have real bear spray. We have lots of bear spray.
Yeah, you need bear spray. So,
yeah.
I mean, so how long? What was the first time you realized? Oh, okay, there's a bear here. What was that like?
It was like a few days. Actually, Sarah found the place, and while she was looking at the ad, went and looked at the ad and was like, "Oh, okay, let me go look at this house." There was a bear in the trees because this was a bit end of August, and there was a bear. So there's about 20 fruit trees on the property, and there's a bear just chewing up on pears and apples, like big bear too, big.
While she's checking out the crib.
Yeah, and she's just like, "Oh, hey bear, okay, all right." And so then I think a week later, I finally fly into town, and because we were moving from California, and we're getting a tour from the maintenance guy. The maintenance guy is turning over the keys, and we're telling him the story about the bear, or Sarah's telling him, and he's getting like real uneasy. He's just like, "Wait, you said there's a bear?" Like, bro, you live here. Why are you should know this stuff, or he's like, "Well, I live an hour away. We don't have that here, or where I live." And I'm like, "Oh, okay."
See, that's the beginning. That's the beginning of a horror story for me, right?
Yeah.
Hey, inject black family, and we're not even getting the keys, right? We're like, oh, this was nice, but let's keep going. Bye now.
So yeah, the funny part is while this dude's showing us around, we're like, Sarah's like, "Oh yeah, there's the bear again." He came back and he's just chewing down on pears. So I go grab, of course, me, photographer dude, I go and grab my camera with a lens, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, these are great pictures." And the guys again, like, you guys are you're okay with this? I was like, I mean, we both grew up outdoors, we in the woods, seen our fair share of nature, and I've always been of the mind of this is as much, if not more, their place than it is ours. And so I'm always going to try and coexist. As long as it's not a skunk attacking me or a possum trying to eat my family members, dogs or people, then we can be friends.
That's very noble of you.
But I have been very mad at bears for quite a few times because they get in the trash and they throw it everywhere. And
they love Taco Bell, looks like.
I don't know.
Anytime you run for the border, they're like, "Hey, what you got? You got a little Nacho Bell Grande left up in there?"
They definitely love leftover pizza. I know that.
So wait, so you have leftover pizza?
Yeah, we usually get way too much.
Is that a thing? Oh, okay. That's a thing in your house, huh? Leftover pizza.
Yeah, it is a thing.
Yeah, so that kind of trips me out because here, right? Gators, of course. This is gator country, and I don't know. People ask, Florida is such like this. It's almost like Pluto for some people. They can't get it. They can't get it right. First and foremost, people come here and they're like, "Hey, I'm going to be in Tallahassee. Maybe I can see you." I'm like, that's 8 hours away.
It's a long state.
Okay, this is a big state, bro.
Yep.
This is not Fort Lauderdale. They think it's Fort Lauderdale or Orlando, and every city is just like a suburb of it.
Oh, it's right there.
Yeah, no. And also, people are like, you think there's gators in there? I'm like, is it a body of water?
And yes.
That's not the ocean. And sometimes you can see them in the ocean.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're in there. So it's not fun, but I don't have bears. Lizards. Like I went out this morning. There was a big lizard. We went out, let the dog out. Dog's chasing the lizard. Lizard jumps in the pool, swims around. One of these long tail boys. I've had one gator in my yard. Now I've got the fence up. Can't get in. My deal is the snakes.
Ooh, the snakes down there,
Yeah.
they get big.
I think it's like a black racer. These don't bother you. They're just there to hunt frogs.
Yep.
And my house is a pass through for him. Yeah, so it's like his route to the corner store or something.
Yeah, to the groceries.
He's just skirting through. And generally, look, I don't want to hurt animals. I don't want to hurt them.
No,
but
you will if you have to.
I will. Yeah, I will. And the bear, I don't know. I just think they're. I think there's some cultural things too.
Sure.
Right, and we'll get into it because, and I'm not, I don't want to generalize, but there seems to be a greater attraction to animals from my white brothers and sisters than there are from blacks.
I think you're right. I think that would be a deep dive conversation, though.
It kind of is. It made me think about that because you probably still want to put hands on on Michael Vick.
I've forgiven and forgotten, but at the time I was like, bro, you were my dude, and no,
oh my God.
I will have to hurt you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, and the only reason I bring that up, and I'm not at all, and I don't need to validate myself. I'm not validating Michael Vick. My point is that was a clear line in the sand.
Yes.
When I was like, oh, because let me just tell you, culturally, in the late 70s and early 80s, the way black people kept their dogs today would be inhumane.
Very much so.
Right? Yeah. And it's like outside, a big chain, a couple of pots. Back in the early 80s, dogs were outside.
Yep.
There was a dog house. You were eating what the family ate. It was leftovers. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, culturally, now I've never been around dog fights or dog fighting. But when it happened, I was like, oh, that,
guess that's normal.
Sucked. Yeah.
Not normal, but.
Yeah. It wasn't normal to me, but I was just like, oh, got a dude out here being rough with some dogs. And the outrage that came. And then I was like, whoa, this dude's going to the joint? Holy cow. Yeah. And it was at that moment that I recognized, I was like, oh, don't mess with the dogs in America. Right?
No, definitely not.
And you got 4.
We have 4. I'm actually that person that's like, people die and I'm like, yeah, that's unfortunate. That's a bummer. Yeah. I feel bad for you. But I hear about somebody's dog dying, man, I'm like busted up for a bit. I'm like, oh no, I'm crushed because I care more about dogs than people probably.
Yeah. And to me, that's a psychological mystery. Right. And I'm like, and I want to keep learning about it because there's a lot of beauty in it, but that's not in everyone. Right.
No,
I don't want to see,
sure.
I don't want to see any. I have a dog. I love dogs. We've had cats. I'm an animal person. But again, I'm not walking up at Starbucks trying to pet your dog either.
Can I pet your dog? Yeah.
And I think inherently that's also, it's cultural things in there. So growing up in Detroit, there were always a lot of loose dogs.
Yeah.
So walking to school, like I still have trauma to this day if I hear a dog chain. Yeah. I'm a grown ass man. If I hear a dog chain, I'm looking around like, what? Is that a loose Rottweiler?
Well, it's actually kind of funny you say that because I actually got attacked by a dog when I was 4.
Really?
My mom was living up in Wyoming. That's a whole different story. I was like a ping pong ball with my mom when I was a kid. She was a hippie. Sometimes she could afford me, sometimes not. And so that's why, anyway, but, yeah, I think it was a husky. I was petting a husky and her boyfriend.
Huskies
her boyfriend
are
puppy,
insane.
yeah. Her boyfriend husky was like, hey, no. And grabbed onto my face. I have no memory of it really. But you would think that I probably should hate dogs.
Bro,
maybe. And
you're lucky.
Yeah.
Did they have to put a plastic surgeon on you?
No, these good looks just come for free.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it improved it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's crazy. Huskies are wild. But yeah, so culturally, and even then in the early 80s, definitely late 70s, dogs were for protection.
Right.
Like in the Black community.
Right.
They're for protection. It's just like, stay out of my yard, or you know what? I got some tools back here, or I got a little baby junkyard. But exactly. You remember back when people would say, beware of dog.
Right.
That actually deterred people. Like,
yeah, or the junkyard dogs. Remember the junkyard dogs in WW?
So scary. So yeah. So my relationship with them, it didn't become relevant until I was, way out of college. Right. And then, meeting some friends with some labs or something like that. You know, you can, who's afraid of a lab?
Nobody.
You know what I'm saying? Or a golden retriever.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not afraid of them, but you see a Bouvier or a pit bull.
You're going to,
right. And pit bull's got a bad rap too.
Super bad rap. I mean, they're still crazy. And if you can still trigger them, but you cannot just be like, oh, he's fine. He's completely fine. You need to be a proper, informed, educated owner, and then things will be fine. But if you are not, you can still get into trouble with a pit bull.
Yeah. I've had neighbors that were very good with pit bulls. They changed the way I've looked at them. And they were like that. They were like, oh, they're great. It's just, these are bad owners.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not the dog to have a bad owner with.
Right. It's like giving a Ferrari to a kid, right? It's like, no, this is a sophisticated piece of equipment. There's some rules and regulations that don't apply to a Toyota Camry.
Yeah. Don't give a machine gun to the kid who's killing bunnies.
Sure.
don't do that. We're going to be in trubs with this one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But we have some dear friends who have a pit bull, and she's the sweetest lady. Yeah, she gets a little feisty sometimes around other dogs, but she's a sweetheart of an old lady. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was saying that I think the psychological piece of animal lovers is just a whole nother game, because I almost feel like, and I call you the dog bishop. Right?
Dog bishop, yes.
The dog bishop. Give us a blessing, dog bishop. So I almost feel like you feel like your pets came to you.
They did. Every single one of them. I mean, in fact, our last dog literally found us. He showed up. So all of our dogs, all of our current dogs are rescues in every sense of the term. So we have Kenzie, Gunner, Sasha, and Killian, and they came in that order. Kenzie we found at the pound in Lake Elsinore, and she was like a brand new little baby puppy, and she was just really cute. And Sarah got there and almost had to like wrestle with some other lady, because she went and paid for Kenzie while some other lady was like, hey, can I go see that dog? And they're like, that dog's adopted. So 30 seconds later, and Kenzie would have been working on a farm somewhere instead of living the bougie luxury life she's living now.
Eating and tasting sous vide meat.
No, not unless Sarah's sharing with them. My dogs don't eat. people
They
food.
don't eat. Oh, good. Smart.
Yeah. Yeah. No, dogs eat dog food.
Yeah. Freddie don't eat. Well, I'll cut him a little piece of steak.
Yeah. Every once in a while,
he goes crazy.
A little something, something.
But it's not, I'm not like giving him stuff from off the table.
Yeah. But the first 3 dogs we found at shelters. And then we were like, okay, no more. We're good. And then Killian, the area we lived in California was like out by a lot of new construction and kind of not in the suburbs, but just on the skirts of the suburbs. And what we found out afterwards was that it was a pretty popular area for people that would just go dump dogs. Like their puppy would have dogs and they would just go dump the puppy somewhere. And we're pretty sure that's what happened because he showed up underneath Sarah's car early in the morning in October. It was cold. It was probably like in the 50s and he was dehydrated, like on death's door. And just this little tiny guy. He was probably only about
Killian.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so he found us. He found us.
That's special, bro.
Yeah.
That's special.
I mean, he's a psycho terror, but he found us.
For sure. And he's like all over you.
Oh God. That's the thing with dogs, right? Have you ever come home and Freddie's been pissed off at you? Like, no, I don't want anything to do. No, it doesn't matter how bad or how good or how they're always like, hey,
it's Groundhog Day every day.
The whole world.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, give me a treat. Give me a greenie.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's interesting. Do you ever think there's like someone inside of those dogs that you know?
Yeah. I think there's souls and everything. And I have that thought a lot, like, like an eagle doesn't seem as emotional as a dog, right? An eagle's just like, I will kill you. I'm going to do it.
I'm here to rip your eyes out.
Right. But a dog's like, hey, man, the domesticated dog is just so loving.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel like there are souls, whether they're people's souls or not. I don't know. It's
the eyes for me. Sometimes I'm just like, who's in there?
Right.
Who's in there? You understand me? Sometimes even if I got something going on, it's like they're attuned to it. I'm not really a horse person, but horses are really good at that. Like at catching people's Are you a horse guy?
I grew up around the horses. I could care less.
They're bonkers to me. They're psychopaths.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And they're just too big, and they get spooked. And if your energy is halfway off, it's like they mirror it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So back to something, I don't want to lose this point. And you you are the best representative, I would say, of people who rescue.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's up with the people who want to shame people because they rescue? Right. So it's like, we've got all of these golden doodles and all of this. Even Freddie, bro, I paid a lot of money for him. And but there's this pack of people that'll be like, oh, God, no, I rescued Felipe.
So what is that about? I think the thing is like, all right, so here's the situation. There are a lot of people, especially people that come from around the world that have seen the world and seen some stuff. You go to certain parts of the world and there are wild, loose, domesticated animals, dogs everywhere, right? And it's a problem. And that same problem also kind of exists in the U.S., but we have, kennels and rescues and adoption centers and stuff for those dogs. And so there's tens, if not hundreds of thousands or more dogs that people don't see because they're locked up in a place waiting to get adopted or rehomed or whatever. And so when you've got these people who have gone through that process and they suddenly think that they're, I don't want to say elitists, but they're like, oh, I adopted a dog. It's like, that's where they're coming from, is because they've seen this island of lost toys or misfit toys that nobody cared about. And it's like, oh, you went and paid and perpetuated the issue of puppy mills and inbreeding and all that stuff. I'm not saying I agree with that, but that's where that stigma is coming from.
And well said, because there are people who are dog novices.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Right. Not a lot of people are up for, digging a pooch from up under a car. Mm-mm. And not knowing them. And, you have to have a set of special skills to be able to manage a stray, if you will.
Oh, yeah,
right?
And for sure. I mean, and here's the thing, right? With every dog, like we talked about with pit bulls, there's like beginner level dogs, right? Like entry level, perfect for anybody dogs. And then there's like expert level dogs, like a pit bull or like, this is a crazy one, but Australian cattle dogs, right?
No, they're crazy.
Those are working dogs that need a lot of attention, they need a lot of room, they need to run, they need to do stuff, or they're going to be all up in your business and probably chewing stuff up because they're so smart and they have so much energy. And so that's up there again on the expert level dogs. And so if you go to a kennel or a shelter, you might not know what mix of beginner to expert level dog you have. And so it is safe to go, oh, a doodle. Mom and dad were really nice and they were really good. They have good demeanor and they were good around kids. Baby puppy's probably going to be the same. And so that's a safe bet.
It's a safe bet because my daughter, out of nowhere, she developed this fear of dogs. Right. And I tell you this story all the time. I'm like, hey, you're going to grow up and be around a lot of white people and they love dogs.
So you nipped it in the bud with a Yorkie.
We got to go get a dog. Right. And I can't, and I've seen some friends. I got friends, bro, who've tried to do it.
Right.
Two sets. They've tried to do it. They've gone, they've rescued. And saying that they weren't good at it, but I just feel like they were. I feel like the issue is that they were in suburbia, right, and the dogs that they picked needed to be like on a cattle ranch,
exactly,
right. You know what I'm saying? Out in the sticks, but you go and rescue these dogs, and you're in my neighborhood in the cul-de-sac and there's kids. I used to tell half of these people like, hey, your dog needs some diversity training.
Yeah, for sure.
Because he's growling around me. And if my friends are listening, and I know they're laughing, and I had to tell them, I was like, hey, and it changed them. Right. They went, they were in a situation where they're like, okay, we can go pay $4,000 for a dog, or let's just go rescue and find. Look, man, did the old college tried to go get one, got the dog came out. These are my peeps, like my weekend friends, like, oh, let's get some drinks. Let's get in the pool. Let's make a fire. So I'm like, oh, you guys got a dog. And the key is they lost their dog.
Yeah.
They lost their dog, a nice, golden, beautiful soul, passed away. And they're like, we got to get a new dog. New dog, insane. Immediately, he's growling at me. Yeah. Right. And they're trying to get him under control. So what do? This is hilarious. They double down. Oh, let's get him a friend. Right. Yeah. They went and got another one. Bro, it changed the dynamic of their household.
Everything.
And then they were almost trapped because they were like, oh my God, the kids are going to hate us. Right. If we get rid of these dogs. And I was like, you guys have not been the same. Mm-mm. Nope. You guys have not been the same. And I was like, you got to get rid of these dogs. Those kids will be okay. And one day we came back and the dogs were gone and it was peace in the household. Yeah, it was. And it's a shame.
It breaks my heart a little bit.
I know, but they took them back. You know what I'm saying? And one of them's
the right
running,
thing to do.
One of them's running with horses, and the other one's doing something else. But
exactly.
And then they went and got, I think, 2 little doodles. Everybody's great. And these are my peeps who moved out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So my point is don't shame people for their choices.
I couldn't agree more.
You know, if you got, because this dog's everywhere. And if you're one of those, if you're one of those people, go grab them. You know, go get a 1-year-old puppy.
Right.
You know, but if not, you can wait and go pick them up and like a newborn. And, you know, sometimes, you know how kids are with puppies. They love puppies. Yeah. So I think that's the other piece, too, is when you're dealing with kids, depending upon how the kids are coming up.
Right.
You know, the smell of that puppy and the whimpering and all of that, sort of the growth of it is what I think a lot of suburban, you know, middle class families look for, is like that piece of it. Totally.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who get they're pregnant and they're like, oh, let's get a baby puppy right before, and then those two are bonded together, and those are great stories. And then, you know, usually around the time the kid's like 12 or 13 or 14, then you know, then they lose their childhood friend, and that's traumatic.
We have to put Trigger down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Trigger's no more.
Yeah.
I've seen people get puppies before having a kid.
Right. I think they're a great learning tool, because you kind of have to puppy proof your house. You have to, you know, it's like getting a baby puppy, you know, it's like, and potty training them the right way and crate. It's very similar to, it's a good workout for your household, for your stamina, for your sleep etiquette, to I'm about to have a child. Right. It's I'm not saying it's as hard. I'm not saying it's the same, but it's a good learning tool. Like, oh, maybe we're not suited for kids.
Maybe we're not ready for. Yeah, we're not ready for twins.
Exactly.
So back to the bear. Like, how do you manage the bears coming around with your dogs?
Well, we're lucky in that we, you know, a large part of our yard is fenced, and the bears. So the dogs basically, they go in the backyard and run around and do stuff and we're only under, you know, eagle eyes from us. Right. And then if they're in the front yard, the only time they're going in the front yard is when they're getting in the cars or when we're going to go for a walk, and they're always on leash.
And you keep them doubled up. You guys got like double leashes?
No.
No. Single?
It's just single, but they have harnesses, so they're okay.
Okay.
But our dogs are they're very good on leashes. I mean, when we lived in SoCal, I could open my front door and let all the dogs into the front yard and know that even the deaf dog wouldn't take off and disappear. But a lot of times, you know, I wasn't one of those like, no, don't open the door. It's like, I'm because, you know, I had taught them to stick around and kind of like
that takes a lot of special skills.
It does. It's not easy.
It's got to be inside of you, because we were those people like, don't open the door.
Right.
Freddie would take off for days.
Right.
You know, not days, but, you know, you'd be chasing him.
No, and
he's like, this is fun.
Never had that issue.
Yeah. So you haven't had any issues with the bear?
I wouldn't say not had any issues. I mean, I've talked about cleaning up the trash. And so there was a week where it was this mama bear and her 2, we'll call them teenager bears, right? They weren't babies, but they weren't like full grown enough to be on their own yet. And that's usually in any scenario, especially with bears, that's kind of that now you're getting into that blurry line of, ooh, this could be dangerous. And it was, so baby bears, I think it's just in their instinct, right? Instead of running away, because they're not as fast as grown up bears, because male bears will kill a baby bear. Just because they think it's like, oh, this young pup's going to take over my world, so I better nip this in the bud before they become an issue. It's kind of weird. But so baby bears go up instead of away, and we have a bunch of huge trees on the property.
Trees, right?
And so usually you could go out there, and this was my first occurrence with this. I would go out there and bear, get out of here, and the lone bears would be like, oh no, I'm gonna take off into the woods. But baby bears, they just go whoop, right up the tree. And now you got mama bear down there like she wants to take off because she's scared out of her mind. But she also knows her babies are up in the tree. So it was literally this conflict between, oh no, I'm gonna eat you. Oh no, I'm mad at you. It was I was watching it on her face. And so I had to start pepper spraying those bears with the bear spray. And let me tell you something about this. The same way that, if you want to carry a gun, if you want to have mace, if you want to have pepper spray, if you want to any of those things, you better have used the damn things, right? So make sure that you go out there, because here's the thing with pepper spray. Everybody's like, oh, I got my pepper spray or bear spray. And, know how to use the safety trigger on it. Know that you're probably going to get some in your face too.
Hey, you're going to smell it, player.
Oh, yeah. Because it's just this fine mist powder, and you're going to be burning up too. So just be aware of the tools that you're using. There's a reason that in certain fields you have to use one of those things before you can carry it.
When is there a time to go after the bear?
Yeah. So there's a little jingle, right? Just if the bear is brown, lay down, because brown bears are like Kodiaks and grizzlies, and those are 40-mile-an-hour fuckers that you can't outrun them. They will take a swipe at you and your head will fall off. So if it's brown, you lay down and play dead because you're not running away. If it's black, you yell back. So black bears are the smaller kind of general, what we have mostly in the U.S. except for up in like the top of, Canada and Minnesota and stuff. So black bears are just, those are like Yogi Bear. They're like, oh, hey, it's okay. And they're scared. They'll be generally more afraid of you. But if there are cubs involved, don't get stuck between a mom and doesn't matter what kind of bear they are.
What was that movie? What was it? The Revenant?
Yes.
With Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yeah.
Wow.
Fighting that huge grizzly.
What a scene of all scenes.
Yeah, it was a crazy movie.
Yeah. 2 points on that. So there's a clip out there of some photographers, and there's a bear like in Alaska. I'm sure you've seen it, rushing up on him. And these two dudes just stand their ground.
Yep.
And the bear, hauls tail up on him, gets maybe 20 yards, and then veers away. I'm just like, oh, my God. How are you doing that? That's insane. But second, I kind of have a hypothesis about the bears. And there's a woman who does some research out west. And I have this feeling like the bears are coming into cities more.
For sure.
And I'm like, what is dry? Is it hunger? But there's all these videos, there's a video of a bear walking up into a Wendy's, right? And they're like, oh my God, get out of here, bear. And bears walking in convenience stores.
Especially in Alaska.
It just seems as though, and in this woman that did this study, she just shows all of these areas, like it's like green. This is where the bears are. And then red is, where people are and where they're being seen. And I'm like, what is going on with the bears that they're coming around people like this so much?
It's a couple of things. The biggest factor is that those areas of red that you're talking about are getting bigger. And so they're starting to creep out, and they're starting to take over what was green land, right? Those green areas. And so wild animals are being displaced, right? And we see it in people life too, but that's a whole different conversation.
Right.
But, so now these bears are like, hey, this was my home. I can't go there anymore. So they're going to start coming out. And the closer in proximity that you get nature to people, the more comfortable nature is going to get with the people. So because we've taken more ground and put windies up all over the place, the bears are like, whoa. Hey, that actually smells kind of good.
That's
Maybe
good.
I want some of that.
And this used to be a little pond, right?
Exactly.
Here.
So it's that's kind of why I talk about, right, is it's like, hey, this is their house too. We can coexist.
Interesting piece. You talk about that. All of my folks in Michigan's huge with deer, right?
Yep.
It's deer.
Oh yeah.
Deer
Your
all
cousin.
over Michigan. Yeah. You've seen that. And during COVID, the deers went wild.
Yeah.
Right.
There was nobody out. They're like, we're getting it back.
They're like, hey, people are coming out now and they're just in your driveway.
Right.
Eating your plants and doing stuff like that. So to me, that was insane.
Yeah.
An area in Michigan, Southfield, Farmington, you'd always see, oh, there's a deer. But now you'll drive down a residential neighborhood and it's deer like, hey, what up? Right. They're not even trying to haul to get out of there.
No, they're just like, what do you got? Yeah.
What
down.
you got? Like,
get away.
We've been partying here for 2 years and now you guys are back out cutting grass and stuff again.
Yeah.
Dope, bro.
Very dope.
Dope conversation. The dog bishop. You educated us, man.
Hey, man, you got to spread the knowledge. Speaking of dogs, and maybe this is controversial, you can only put one ingredient on a hot dog. What are you going to put on it?
Only one?
Only one.
Mustard.
There you go. You win. You win. If you had said ketchup, we'd have fought. You'd have been a psycho.
Bro, you are like one of the biggest food snobs ever.
I've seen a few things.
I got to get you to Detroit to have a real live coney dog.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, you say coney dog, and you know where the word coney comes from.
Yeah, I don't want to hear all of that. This is Coney Island. This is part of Detroit. I take you in a place where a guy's like, oh, my friend. How are you, my friend?
I like it.
I
love all food. I'll try anything.
Extra chili for my friend here.
Let's go.
Right, I'm taking you there, and listen, you got to have it with chili, onions, and mustard.
And mustard, no cheese.
You can have cheese. Yeah.
Okay, chili, onions, and mustard is mandatory.
That's mandatory. You want extra cheese, and then we get fries, and then we put chili and cheese on the fries.
That sounds like a hell of a good day to me.
You know what I'm saying? I'll take you to Coney Island.
Let's go.
When I get you to Detroit.
I'm ready.
Man, great conversation.
Fun, man. Always good.
As always, any other questions from you today for me?
I'm going to save them. I've got a good list going, though, so you expect these in the future.
I love it. Well, listen, gang, appreciate you listening. Wherever you're listening on, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and most importantly, just pass it along. We're getting a lot of feedback on Instagram, a lot of people loving what we have to say, and we just want to keep it going. So thanks in advance for passing it along. And as always, thank you, brother.
Thank you, my man.
Peace.
Peace.